Randy, we've got a problem.
What? They go.
Reality's here. He's trying to crash the party. Reality? Who let him in?
You're sad that people are mean? Well, I'm sorry. The world isn't one big liberal arts college campus.
I don't have an agenda. Like, I want people to do something. I need them to do something. I want them to avoid irrationality.
I guess what interests me is just like what interests everybody else. It's just sort of what feels real.
Gentlemen, welcome back to Real News on this Friday morning. What feels real? What feels real on this Friday morning to you? My name is Mr. Henry, by the way, David Shine Thompson. That just stuck up on my screen there, Shine. What feels real?
Real friends feel real.
Real friends feel real. That's what I'm talking about. What feels real? That is one of the themes for today's show. I'm going to keep stressing what feels real. As you see, the headlines right there. Vote by mail in Tennessee, 1984 versus Brave New World, as the hospital staff in New York City applaud the protesters. And Drew Brees with a question mark. What feels real anymore? Hey, Shine, buddy. How you doing on this Friday morning, though, before I just get too weird with it? You know what I mean?
You know, every Friday I'm kind of sad that we're not going to be doing a show tomorrow. But that means we just got to blow it out today. So I'm also excited about that. So I'm super excited.
There you go. And we got Kelly in there. We got John in there. We got Cody in there. A few other folks that I'm seeing trickling right now. RealNewsRadio.live, RealNewsRadio.live is the best place to find sort of a centralized hub. We're also on Minds, like your mind, plural, minds.com. We obviously just post the shows. That's where you can find maybe one of the easier links to the Evernote, the show notes. At the top of the show notes there, at the top of the description of this video, you'll see all the show notes here going on. Story for today, like I just said a second ago, vote in mail in Tennessee, 1984 versus Brave New World, and a little bit of Drew Brees controversy. Also has some stuff going on with use of military force. But greatest audience in the nation appreciation segment on this Friday. How are you doing? What you struggling with? What you need some prayer concerns for? Where are you at mentally, psychologically right now? What's been going on with you? Let us know. If you have it, and it's Friday, y'all, by the way, 615-807-0619, 615-807-0619 at the bottom of the hour. That is the 10:30 spot, 9:30 spot Central, 10:30 spot Eastern. Right there at the bottom of the hour, any random topic, Open Lines Friday. We're the first program to use that in the history of programming. Call in, let us know what you want to talk about. I don't care if it has nothing to do with anything we're talking about. That is to say, you can bring up whatever topic you want to. Let's dive into some of these local headlines, though. Get directly to it, man, because there's a bunch of stuff that I'd like to get to before this bottom of the hour thing. So Tennessee was going to allow fairs, parades, and other large events to happen in most counties. Now, again, stressing most counties. Governor Lee and the Tennessee Economic Recovery Group announced Thursday that it will allow larger community events. Pause right there. Some people have a problem with it will allow. I get it. This is the times we're in. Government allowing certain things to happen and not allowing certain things to happen. Keep that in the back of your mind a little bit. It will allow community events to happen as it updates social distancing guidelines for 89 of the 95 counties. Yes, 89 of the 95 counties only. Now, these rules do not apply to Knox, Shelby, Madison, Davidson, Hamilton, or Sullivan counties. We went over this before, but those particular counties follow county-specific reopening plans due to their health departments. Now, the new guidance issued Thursday added new recommendations for large community events like fairs, festivals, parades, a bunch of other stuff that's going on, and hoping that some social distancing is going to happen with that as well. The guidance also allows or adds new recommendations to mitigate COVID-19 transmission. Here's what Governor Lee had to say. He said, thanks to the continued hard work of Tennesseans and business owners operating responsibly, we're able to further reopen state's economy. These new guidelines provide useful information so that we can enjoy the events that connect us through neighbors and communities and allow businesses to operate in a way that protects the well-being of their customers and employees. Now, this news obviously came as Gatlinburg announced his plans to move forward with its 4th of July festivities, and it's going to be interesting to see how other places are going to be taking this on. It'll be arguably even more interesting to see how Shelby, Knox, and Davidson County, i.e. Memphis, Knoxville, and Nashville, incorporate some of this stuff to their plans. It'll also be possibly exceedingly more interesting to figure out, all right, man, in one of the themes for today, 1984 versus Brave New World, what even is real, what feels real, where are y'all getting your information from as far as it pertains to COVID-19 transmission? You heard that mentioned just a second ago in the article. I don't know what to think about a lot of this stuff anymore, and I have a video coming up here in just a minute that's going to hopefully demonstrate why I'm so confused on this topic right now. Quick aside, I just saw Norm Tina pop up in Facebook here. Hey, Norm. Let us know how Riley's doing, man. Community's been looking after her. Want to make sure that she's doing okay. She had some tonsillectomy surgery. I've been trying to follow the post a little bit, but oh yeah, awesome, buddy. Oh, sorry. Yeah, Shine said that the it's like a snurdly thing, man. Shine talks to me in my head, by the way, both on the show
There's a little
and
voice
off
in my
the
head,
show.
and his name is Shine. And he tells me the news, and then I tell you guys. It works out really well.
It's like Fight Club, bro. They're trying to figure out like who's the real one. You know, it's just alter egos of the same person. What's going on here? Shine's in my head all the time, both on the show and off the show. But Norm, yeah, looking after. Want to see what's going on there. Let us know. She's doing well, he says. That's fantastic. Thanks for the prayers. Hey, realnewsradio.live. Let's continue with a bit more local coverage. So Governor Lee's saying that he's going to, consider opening up some fairs, parades, and other large events. And as that news starts to come in, one might think, I'm not trying to be too cynical here. I promise you I'm not. I'm just trying to read the tea leaves a little bit. I don't know. One might read a little bit. This next headline come from Tennessee, and that the Republican Party eyes Nashville for upcoming convention. Apparently, the RNC is going to tour the city, and Governor Lee has actually expressed, some support of this idea. Now, I said the cynic because, one could say that Governor Lee was talking about opening stuff back up and doing whatever North Carolina is not doing is the point that I'm making. Whatever North Carolina is not doing, let Tennessee try and do that, because North Carolina is in a bad way right now, or so says the Republican leadership, after Trump announced that the RNC would not be holding its convention in North Carolina. Catching up on that story a little bit, here's President Trump saying that he's weighing his options. This is a couple days ago. Weighing his options after threatening to pull the Republican National Convention out of North Carolina in August. 2 Republican governors have offered their states as alternatives. Now, the Republican Party is eyeing Nashville as a possible location to host this summer's Republican National Convention and will tour the city on Thursday. Now, Governor Lee said this on Tuesday. What's the date on this, Sean? Up there, I think did this happen? Did this tour happen yesterday? I'd be interested to know that. Gotcha. Oh, dude, that's fantastic. No, I did the same thing. Well, this is published on June 2nd, so yeah. I think we're talking if this tour happened yesterday.
Yeah, the tour, as far as I know, I'm pretty sure I saw on Twitter that the tour happened.
Well, the governor's announcement came just hours before President Trump tweeted on Tuesday evening that North Carolina would no longer be hosting the RNC. Lee went on to say that Nashville is the best place in America to have a convention, adding that his office had just begun those conversations. Lee went on to say, obviously, that hosting the convention in Tennessee would help Nashville and its state economy rebound from coronavirus pandemic. Now, this story is slightly outdated, but the reason why I bring it up is just to sort of put in people's minds what's going on, all right? So we have the state at large attempting to, say, enact certain policy or at least propose certain ideas that are not applicable to every single county, yet the counties where some of those ideas are most applicable to have their own plans going on. A spokesperson for Nashville Mayor John Cooper, the obvious mayor of Nashville here, said that the city has not been contacted by the RNC about the convention yet. He went on to say, quote, "Of course, we're not surprised that any national convention would look at us, and we do look forward to seeing our tourism and convention economy thrive again. We have no plans to use our limited public funds to recruit the convention this time. We're very excited about having the ability to help Belmont host the presidential debate this October."
No one needs you to spend money, Cooper. Golly, is that his first reaction for everything is, oh, we need to spend a lot of money? No, they're already walking around Nashville. Goodness gracious.
You know what's funny about this too, man, is before I even got to that part of the story, Ginger said in Facebook here, Nashville mayor is pushing back against this, right? Yeah, you're right, Ginger.
No,
yes.
I didn't get that. I got, oh my goodness, that would be awesome. Then people wouldn't be mad at me because we'd make a lot of money and make up for this budget shortfall.
I see that. That's a good point. Right.
That's probably his first thought was, man, that would be great because all these bar owners hate me for making them close and then allowing looters and rioters to destroy their bars. Maybe they won't hate me so much if I let the Republican convention come here.
Oh, man. Hey, there's going to be several more disagreements going forward. Next story here in the line. You're talking about, okay, so we might have a disagreement as to the way that, whether the RNC can come in here. We might have a disagreement as to whether or not, especially Nashville, okay, whether there's going to be, we're talking tourism. You are talking Nashville. You're talking, major amphitheaters. You're talking music. You're talking, it's Nashville. We might have a disagreement there. What is going to cause a major controversy, I will predict, because it already has, and it just happened last night. Here's the headline from Tennessee. Nashville judge orders Tennessee's to permit vote by mail for all residents. Nashville judge orders Tennessee to permit vote by mail for all residents. A Nashville judge on Thursday ruled that the state of Tennessee must give any registered voter the option to cast a ballot by mail, paving the way for widespread mail-in voting in light of the coronavirus pandemic. Now, this is Davidson County Chancellor Ellen Hobbs. She gave this order on Thursday. Now, per her order, the state is no longer permitted to enforce its current requirement that residents provide an excuse as to why they cannot vote in person. The state is also mandated to provide any eligible voter who applies to vote by mail in order to avoid coronavirus with an absentee ballot. The state must also post on their website notifications that those who do not wish to vote in person because of coronavirus are eligible to request an absentee ballot and cast their vote by mail. The order does not require the state to automatically mail absentee ballots to all registered voters. I feel like that's a very important part of the story, so I'll pregnant pause here, read it one more time. The order does not require the state to automatically mail absentee ballots to all registered voters, as is done in some states. Now, a lot of you are already saying that doesn't make any better for me. I will say that it in some sense, it does make it at least slightly better than what other states are doing. Now, as to whether you agree or not that, you should be able to have the opportunity to have a mail-in ballot because of your fear, alleged or otherwise, of coronavirus stuff, that's possibly a separate conversation. Voters must still ask for the absentee ballot so they can vote by mail. Here's her exact words, by the way. In this time of worldwide COVID-19 pandemic, by her, I meant the judge. In this time of worldwide COVID-19 pandemic and its contagion in gatherings of people, almost all states, both Republican and Democrat, are providing their citizens the health protection of voting by mail option. This includes southern states such as Alabama, South Carolina, and Arkansas, and Tennessee's neighboring state of Kentucky and nearby West Virginia. I think most Tennesseans would prefer not to have that association, just my opinion, whatever. Going on to say the governors, state officials, and legislators in these states have spearheaded efforts to expand access to voting by mail to protect the health of their citizens during the pandemic. And I'm pretty sure she either purposely or inadvertently fell upon what I think is going to happen next year. That is, quote, the governors, state officials, and legislators in those states have spearheaded efforts. Well, yes, but that's not how you just did it here, is it? Now, again, whether I'm being critical of this judge's opinion or not is not necessarily the point. And by opinion, I don't mean in the traditional sense. I mean the words that are on this four corners of this document. I mean the opinion that she put down. The ruling is what I mean. I'm not necessarily being critical of the legal analysis behind this ruling. What I'm being critical of is what she actually just mentioned. Possibly the proper way that some of these decisions should have been handled and possibly will be handled going forward. That being the governors, state officials, and legislators in those states, the ones she just mentioned, Kentucky, Arkansas, Alabama, South Carolina, the governors, state officials, and legislators in those states spearheading those efforts. In a representative republic, the represented people enjoy having a voice, especially on an issue like this. In particular, because of President Trump making it such a massive issue about what's about to happen going forward into 2021. Now, obviously, I think this judge knows what she's doing. She knows what she's talking about. I don't know if she's trying to cover up for something going forward, or if she's just recognizing the inevitable future that's about to come of what I would expect to be pushback from legislators and governors. Facebook. Let me know how you feel about this. You know where I've stood on this for a little while. I hesitate to give my exact opinion because frankly I just haven't developed it yet. Sean, jump in at any point, man, if you let them know how you feel, because I'm still trying to work through. I don't necessarily know why, if these are going to be the judge's opinions, and if there is any legislators up there that are willing to take on something and say, you know what, I agree with this judge. I agree with where she's coming. I don't think that will happen, but let's say that it does happen. I just don't understand why Republicans don't have a contingency plan in there. I mean, Tennessee is already the second worst state in the nation when it comes to voter turnout. So we got a problem regardless of what happens here. But I would think, man, that the Republicans can mobilize as well, if not possibly better, than Democrats could is when it comes to a mail-in process. And if I want to be frank, as far as like the alleged, possibility of some type of mail-in fraud, well, that's there on both sides. Now, hear me, no one's advocating for that to happen. I'm just saying it doesn't seem to be necessarily a partisan effort. Because the last time we had evidence of this, it was a Republican that was trying to do ballot harvesting. Illegal ballot harvesting, that is. So you would think that Democrats would be making that same argument as well. Like we're afraid of the ballot harvesting because, Republicans just did this back in 2016. So I just can't get my head around it necessarily. And I don't want to give my opinion because I can't figure out some of these things.
Well, context though, right? Context. This is not like what they're doing in other states. This is not like what, at least according to the press secretary for the President of the United States, this is not something that President Trump has been arguing against. If you're a Trump fan and you feel like Tennessee has betrayed you or something like that, the main thing that I've heard from the press secretary when asked about this stuff is they didn't like the idea of sending everyone on the voter rolls ballots. Now, what happened in Nashville, as far as I understand, is the state of Tennessee said you had to give like a valid reason for asking for an absentee ballot. Probably the reasons that are already within the Tennessee legal code, like you're not in the state, like you're on active duty military. Maybe you have dual citizenship of the United States. Probably all those regular things, right? All this judge did was say other people who aren't in those legal categories can request an absentee ballot. You don't really, in my opinion, people are going to overhype this. I agree with you that, like, the judge was kind of legislating, and she'll probably have a reckoning for that, to be perfectly honest.
And I think she knew she was a little bit. Yeah. She acknowledged it, right?
She knows. But I think it's important not to get too hyperbolic about it, because we're not talking about the thing that everyone is afraid of. So context, very important context. The thing that you've been hearing from most Republicans is we don't want to see these mass mailings to all the people on the voter rolls. Because we've had like studies that in California, when they did this just recently, 15% of the ballots they sent out to people were people who were dead.
24 million unaccounted for since 2012.
Right. So that's the major issue. So that's context. Very important. I don't really see us getting into the situation that like Florida got into in 2018, where giant semi-trucks of paper ballots were coming in at 3 o'clock in the morning. Right. I don't think we're going to get to that, because here's the deal. People already don't get off their rear ends and go vote in the state of Tennessee to the tunes of millions. They don't. And if they have to do something like go on a website and request a piece of paper, and then that piece of paper get mailed to them, and then them receive it, fill it out, and mail it back, I think that the amount of people doing this, Grant, in the state of Tennessee, based on our past experience with Tennesseans, is it's going to be a negligible amount of the vote, in my opinion. Unless people really organize people. Really.
I hear you.
Around the voting by mail. But here's the deal. You can still vote regular. So I think you're going to have a hard time motivating a mail-in ballot campaign when people can just be like, well, I still can go to the place in my neighborhood, right? That seems a lot easier than getting on a website and and then waiting for, that whole process. So
right.
I think instead of giving an opinion, context was very important here. This is not the thing you're afraid of, at least not yet. But I still think she'll get pushback, and I feel like this will get overturned because it's the state of Tennessee's That it's the people's right to make that decision, and the people are represented by the legislature. It's not her job to decide what is best for Tennesseans.
Yeah.
And
No,
I
that's
think
great
it's
analysis,
very
though.
weird to say that it would be harm if this wasn't allowed. That also, I think, is a stretch and will be challenged, and I think whoever challenges it will win.
That's great analysis, man. It's a distinctly different thing than what's happening in different states. Kelly says in Facebook, "Aw, dang, here we go." Jonathan said in Facebook,
Here we go.
The problem is, how is the state going to validate that someone is eligible to vote? The burden to validate that information is not nothing. The burden to validate that information is not nothing. Norm went on to say that I would like to think that you cannot get a mail-in ballot unless you are on the rolls and the address matches. Let's see. Jonathan went on to say Democrat Michigan disability. Here's Kelly actually saying as well, these electronic voting machines are vulnerable too, are they not? Possibly. I would think anytime an election happens, some vulnerability may be exploited, and obviously that's what anybody looking to exploit an election might be finding something with electronic voting. But I think, and I'm unless something's changed, last time I covered election process, I'm fairly certain in the state of Tennessee, all these votes are downloaded to a central hard drive in the physical location, right, John? And then those hard drives have to be physically driven into another spot. So I'm talking like precinct to precinct. Nothing's connected to the internet, I want to say. So I would presume the mail-in ballot process would operate in a similar manner. But again, check me on that if I'm wrong. I have always been told that's
I'm not going to confirm to the audience that I know exactly how the chain of custody goes, because I do not. And and I think it might be good for you to ask your local, people who live in different places. Might be a fun homework project to call your local county election commissioner and maybe ask them what the chain of custody is, what the policy is in your county, because that's good to know. Because you as a citizen can go ask for a precinct count at your precinct every election if you want. You can you don't have to be a member of the media. You can just walk up after it's over and say, "Hey, I'd like the printout of all the votes," and they have to give it to you. It's pretty cool.
Stacy says here too in Facebook, you cannot completely eliminate voter fraud ever. True. That being said, I don't think it's a major issue here. As long as you have someone request a mail-in ballot and aren't mass mailing the ballots out, which this state is not, or at least even the judge does not propose to do so, goes on to say, I don't see a major threat of fraud. And it's interesting because I think most people see this story like that. Just like Sean said, very reasonable analysis, extremely great analysis on this as well. I don't think people see a major threat of fraud. I'll tell you one of the main reasons why I brought this up, of course, is because it broke last night and it's a breaking story that hits with national trends. But I also brought this up for this paragraph right here. One of the final paragraphs in the story. Mail-in voting has become a political focal point in the United States. As the United States grapples with a deadly coronavirus pandemic, that will likely stretch through the presidential election in November. Here's the important part. Voters who mail in their ballots will be able to avoid polling places that may be ripe for exposure to virus on election day. And I paused for a second and I found myself asking, will it though? Will it? Will polling places be ripe for exposure on election day? And I don't presume to know the medical science behind this. Clearly, why would I?
If you loot the polling place, you can't get sick though.
Oh my God.
So that's important to remember.
All right. Yes, that is important to remember. Good Lord. All right. But I found myself wondering, I don't presume to be a medical expert on this. Of course not. But how would I really know what's going on? And I ask, will it be ripe for exposure? Because I'm kind of wondering what's happening with that narrative right now. How is it that the national stories report that someone is recklessly endangering others by voting in person during a special election in Wisconsin, which just happened last month? Those stories just circulated around last month that a spike in COVID-19 happened specifically due to the special election because their state legislature did not allow people to do mail-in process. How do we have those national stories? And the Tennessean reports that the polling places will be ripe for exposure. And yet I can still find videos like the one Shine's about to pull up right here under national story, Shine, that next YouTube headline there, hospital staff. Go ahead and play that. How can I still find videos like this if the other stuff is true? Play that video real quick.
Stop spreading COVID. Make us more money. Woo. You guys are heroes.
You want to know why Justin Trudeau paused for 22 seconds 3 or 4 days ago? Because of stuff like this. Now, he wasn't responding to this particular situation, but it is because of societal situation of stuff like this. You don't know. I say one more time, as I said yesterday, I do not think we are programmed. I don't think we have evolved enough yet as a human species to be able to properly discern truth out of stuff like this yet. And I'm not necessarily saying that someone that's in the know that's purposely manipulating that or working towards that or working against that or I'm not saying that necessarily. I'm just saying, like, does that make sense to y'all? I just went through a story a second ago that we said we had a spike in COVID-19 related cases because people were standing in a polling line to vote in a special election in Wisconsin. You think there was 10,000 people standing in that polling line in the same time? Do you think that Wisconsin did not have a social distancing parameter set up at those polling lines? Tennessean just reported a second ago that polling places will be ripe for exposure. And yet I'm seeing right now the people that would have to take care of those individuals, if that were to happen, are out there applauding it. It's not even irony. I don't know what it is. It's something beyond irony. It's something beyond hypocrisy. Someone posted, actually, man, in go ahead and pull up that next Twitter link there, Sean. I found that YouTube video from a great guy that we follow here. By we, I mean Sean and myself. This guy named Tim Pool. Really, very, very interesting guy. Has a very interesting take, and just much like Shine, has this vision, this ability to just like see through. I don't know, man, like pierce the veil somehow, right? Like just see through to that next paradigm wave. And he's always riding the crest of it. And I don't have that bone. Shine absolutely does. Say it again. Oh yeah, right. He's Democrat. He's Democrat, but he can always just see the next step coming. And it's super interesting how Shine and Tim Pool. Yeah, the Denzel thing. Yeah. So Tim Pool post this video, and in the thread of that video, someone post this Denzel Washington thing here. And before he set it up, man, I stumbled upon this video and I let it play out. And it's nothing about Denzel Washington. Just listen to the words that Denzel is saying. I think this is a little bit of what we have going on here. Go ahead and play that clip, Sean.
If you don't read the newspaper, you're uninformed. If you do read it, you're misinformed.
So what do you do?
That's a great question. What is the long-term effect of too much information? One of the effects is the need to be first, not even to be true anymore. So what a responsibility you all have to tell the truth, not just to be first, but to tell the truth. We live in a society now where it's just first. Who cares? Get it out there. We don't care who it hurts. We don't care who we destroy. We don't care if it's true. Just say it. Sell it. Anything you practice, you'll get good at, including BS. If you don't.
What is the long-term effect of too much information, right? I mean, you heard him say, like, we live in a society right now where if you don't read the newspaper, you're uninformed. But if you do, you're misinformed. What is the long-term effect of too much information? Now, he says that one of those effects is the need to be first. You don't even have to be true. You don't have to be right. You just have to be first. Now, there's fear built up in that. But I think what he's really getting to here is not the fear necessarily built up in censorship, as we've been speaking about previously. I think there's a fear built up in becoming complacent and numb. I don't think we live necessarily in the fear of censorship right now. And yes, what I'm going to is a direct comparison between 1984 and A Brave New World. I think right now we should be vigilant of becoming numb to this kind of hypocrisy, because y'all see that's what's happening, right? It's not just that no one recognizes the hypocrisy anymore. That's what I've come to realize. Everyone recognizes it. The people doing it recognize it. The hospital staff members that are applauding, they know what they're doing. Just no one cares. It just doesn't matter anymore. We've all become desensitized to it. and we become numb to any aspect, any shred, even any whiff of truth. We should fear too much information, leading to the inability to decipher truth. Social critic Neil Postman, he contrasted the worlds of 1984 and the world of A Brave New World. In the foreword of his 1985 book, Assuming Ourselves to Death, he writes the following. That is, Neil Postman writes the following. What Orwell feared were those who would ban books. What Huxley feared was that there would be no reason to ban a book, for there would be no one who wanted to read. Orwell feared those who would deprive us of information. Huxley feared those who would give us so much information that we would be reduced to passivity and egotism. Orwell feared that the truth would be concealed from us. Huxley feared that the truth would be drowned in a sea of irrelevance. Orwell feared that we would become a captive culture. Huxley feared that we would become a trivial culture, preoccupied with the equivalency of the feelies, virtue signaling. As Huxley remarked in A Brave New World, Revisited, the civil libertarians and rationalists who were ever alert to opposing tyranny, quote, failed to take into account man's almost infinite appetite for distraction. In 1984, Orwell added, people are controlled by inflicting pain. In A Brave New World, they are controlled by inflicting pleasure. In short, Orwell feared that our fear will ruin us. Huxley feared that our desire will ruin us. Tell me that's not what's going on right now, Shine. And a little bit of this is vacillating between those two worlds of 1984 and Huxley. But a lot of it, I think, is what's happening right now. Huxley feared that we would become a trivial culture preoccupied with some equivalency of the feelies. Tell me that's not virtue signaling. Everything we talked about yesterday. That we'd be overwhelmed and reduced to just passivity and egotism. It's not necessarily about the cause. It's about making sure that you're recognized that you support the cause. And when you find this kind of hypocrisy, it doesn't matter because we have become numb to something like this. Now, journalist Christopher Hitchens, and to call him just a journalist, I think is a massive understatement. A person that I vehemently disagree with, but someone that I respect. He went on to publish several articles on Huxley in a book. Orwell noted the difference between the two texts and the introduction in his 1999 article, Why Americans Are Not Taught History. He said, we dwell in present tense culture that somehow significantly decided to employ the telling expression, you are history. You are history as a choice of reparation or insult, and thus elected to speak forgotten volumes about itself. Orwell's was a house of horrors. He seemed to strain credulity because it posited a regime that would go to any lengths to own and possess history, to rewrite and construct it, and to inculcate it by a means of coercion. Whereas Huxley rightly foresaw that any such regime would break because it could not bend. For true blessed out vacant servitude, though, you need an otherwise sophisticated society where no serious history is taught. Bro, I'm telling you. If you want to know why people are pushing communism again right now, go look to the fact that the most read text in college right now is Marxist texts. If you want to know why that's the case, you don't teach history anymore. It's just simply not taught. So in this small little scope that we have as Americans to see what is and is not, it's no wonder that this stuff in the video that I just played a second ago doesn't faze you. Why would it faze you? I'm not surprised by this anymore. And just to cap all this out, then I'll go to some comments from Facebook here. Consider the following headline in light of everything that I just said. So this whole little 15-minute rant that I've been going on right now started with a bunch of hospital employees applauding the thousands upon thousands of individuals that were walking through and rightfully protesting, mind you, rightfully protesting. But to juxtapose that with the odd hypocrisy of state leadership, here's the next headline. Cuomo says George Floyd protesters should assume that they've been exposed to coronavirus. All right, so if I look at the totality of the circumstances right now, what am I to assume? that the hospital staff was applauding that some of those individuals might be in their hospital beds the following week? That is grotesque. That is despicable. It's disgusting to think that way. It's disgusting to think that those individuals are motivated by something like that. It's not just sociopathic. I don't know what it is. And I pause a little bit because I'm not necessarily sure if that's their motivation. I think they might just be confused. I think they might just be desensitized. I think we're all frogs sitting in tepid room temperature water that has slowly been turned to a boiling point, and we don't even realize that we're on the verge of death. That's what I think. Shine, before I get to lovey-dovey here, giving people the benefit of the doubt, maybe when I shouldn't, let's hit some of these Facebook comments, man. Or tell me what you think about that. Do you see where I'm coming from, buddy? Do you see maybe this is an answer to what's going on now? Now, the frustrating thing is I don't know what the solution is. If we're stuck in a world of too much information, you can't decipher truth. I don't know what the solution to that is. Is censorship the solution? God, I hope not. God forbid that.
Well, if central powers taking over information was the cause, central powers taking over the information can't be the solution, right? If all of us being able to get on these platforms and whatever into the order of magnitude of billions and share information in that race to be first that Denzel Washington talked about, if that's the cause, then that can't be the solution. We can't say, if as long as we have a great curator like Apple's Tim Cook, that the internet will be fine and information will be great if we put some God King on a mountain and say that's the guy who's deciding, and he's a really nice guy, so it'll be great. I think,
and he's a really nice guy.
He's
right?
a really nice guy, and he seems like a really wimply, harmless person. So I don't think he'd ever harm me. But those are the weirdos. The weirdos are the ones who seem harmless. Just for those of you who are young, you haven't figured that out yet. You need to know. But I think what we're doing right now, where like me and you say this is what feels real to us, we get feedback from a bunch of people who are part of a long form. We're now this is a 54-day conversation that we've been having.
That's true.
This is Real News 54. We've had 54 days of okay, so let's analyze what we saw today together. Let's all give each other feedback. It doesn't have to be nice. It just needs to be respectful, and we just keep on doing that. I think that's the solution. We're all humans. We all have brains. We all have the capacity for reason. And when even when 2 or 3 of us get together and say, okay, what feels real to you? What feels real to me? That's when you can find some truth, or at least what's true for you in the geographical space you're in, and we'll help you through that day. Because really, you can only take it a day at a time. That's if I've learned anything in the 54 Real Newses we've done since the shutdown began, I've learned that is you got to take it a day at a time. You got to share with friends. I think we're trying to do what should be done to combat that. And as far as the new, I was going to say New World Order, George Orwell versus Huxley, I think some people who said it in the comments, it said like both those things are going on.
Yeah,
it's like
right?
We're swirling down a toilet bowl where on the left side of the toilet bowl we hit some Orwell, and then on the way back we hit some Huxley.
Yeah, right.
And all the way down and down into the bottom of the toilet where the poop is. I mean, that's where I feel like that's the metaphor for what's going on. Because sometimes it's like double speak, and other times it's 1,000 speak. Right? Sometimes it's what was true yesterday is the opposite is true today. Sometimes you get a truth out there, and then it's flooded with everything else. I mean, and if you're someone who's on the left, you understand this better than anyone else because you're the ones who get hit with this the hardest. Like, they're so mad that everyone was on the same page with George Floyd, right? Everyone. And then, like, all this other stuff started coming out. Even yesterday, the story you did about we were using this hashtag, and you put up black squares everywhere, and it flooded everything. So, like, you're seeing those tactics employed by, this is what's weird, too, by God knows who, right? She even said, how did you guys even do that?
Yeah.
Which is a really great point that no one will ever ask. How did a bunch of people end up destroying Black Lives Matter communication process? That's weird.
And the vast majority of people that posted, the black squares had no idea that's what they were contributing to. Not a single clue that's what they were contributing to, right?
nobody's thinking about consequences. So, but let's hit some of these Facebook comments.
Yeah,
They're really
Jonathan
good.
said in Facebook, they become partially numb to it, particularly when it's not poking them in their sphere of belief. Yeah, 100%. Kelly said, again, it seems that both of these things are happening simultaneously. Exactly what you just said. Amy, hey, Amy's on here. What's up, Amy? How you doing? Amy's one of the best people to know. If you're in the Nashville area and you don't know Amy, shame on you is what I say. That lady can get it. She is a Vanderbilt law grad, incredible attorney around the area. Get to know Amy. Anyways, she says, here, and you get bashed if you point out that it's virtue signaling. Absolutely you do. Absolutely you get bashed if you point out there's virtue signaling. But I do hope that day is coming where people are going to be able to see through the farce, right? That they'll be able to see through that it's just a thinly sort of veiled veneer that's meant to protect. I don't know. She goes on to say that I have friends from my conservative and libertarian groups who have been virtue signaling hard as a leftist too. Bro, Shine, are you hearing this? Are you hearing this Amy comment? This is exactly, Amy, this is exactly what my buddy Shine has been talking about for like the past, well, if I'm being real, about the past 2 years, he's been warning about this. But Amy says, sorry, I got excited there. Amy said, I have friends from my conservative and libertarian groups who have been virtue signaling hard as a leftist to the past 2 weeks. A leftist as well for the past 2 weeks. That scared me. Shine, I don't know, bro. I'm putting you on the spot a little bit. If you want to take at least 5 minutes or a minute or two and address it. Amy is basically saying it's this weird thing where, like, dude, libertarians are oddly now seeming to have the same type of speech patterns as, say, full-on leftists, but it may not be as surprising as you might think. Am I wrong, Shine?
Well, I'm not ready to give a full doctorate dissertation on that whole thing, but I will say this, adding on to the work that we did yesterday, talking about a political ideology seeming like it's moving into the realm of religion. As we see any political ideology become more religious, then claiming that you believe in the, and you can't see me because my camera didn't turn on, but I'm using air quotes here, when you acknowledge the God of that movement, that's a sacrament. Like getting baptized would be in Christianity, or professing your faith. So to me, when I see the virtue signaling, and I've done it too, it's not like I've never virtue signaled in my life. I may have virtue signaled like during this show, who knows? But the religion is seeping in. So when I see that, all I see is, this is not as much a bunch of reasonable, rational human beings having political discussion. These are religious people having a theological discussion. And I just think more people are testing out and testing out that religion, see if it works for them. Because, people like being in a group. People like being acknowledged by a group. Makes you feel like you're not a complete screw-up. Maybe it makes you feel like there's more order in your life than chaos when you feel like you're on the right side of something. And I'll say too, man, that chaos brings out opportunities to actually test your worldview. I mean, when let's ask this question: if you consider yourself libertarian, Republican, Democrat, Green Party, I don't know, whatever you consider yourself, if it's a party affiliation, or possibly even if it's not, when have you actually had real life circumstances whereby you could fully vet out some of these things that you claim to believe in? I think that's a little bit of what's happening right now. Kelly said in Facebook, by the way, Kelly's emoji game is some of the strongest I've seen in the entire nation. Water droplet, frog, fire. I think there's 3 emojis to tell the story of what we just told, of what's happening in society right now. A raw frog in room temperature water just being slowly turned up, and we don't realize we're dying. Amy says, we've been frogs, but I think they turned up way too fast over the last few months. That's right. People are about to jump out of the pot for sure. Jonathan says that was Antifa. Let's see here, going on forward. Kelly, no surprise at all. The LP is no surprise at all. Kelly says the LP is a mess. And Judy went on to say that I think sometimes we all should just stop talking for a time, be still, and know that I am God. Hey, man, that was the theme for yesterday's show, right? Just be still. And Sean, let me actually switch to well, let me just play this out, man. Where do you want to go with this? There's a great Ami Horowitz thing down there, just that plays out the theme of voting that we're talking about, but also kind of gets in this realm that we were talking about yesterday of like, dude, if you virtue signal too much, too hard, you end up becoming the enemy. You end up becoming the enemy that you're trying to fight. Yeah. Pull up that YouTube video. Now, this video is from 3 years ago, but I think it's a little bit relevant today for 2 reasons. One, we're talking about virtue signaling.
2, we're talking about voting rights. And 3, the theme from yesterday is like, if you don't recognize, in much the vein that Judy just mentioned a second ago, of be still, do some research before you open your mouth, man. As the religion calls for, you are compelled to post. There is a compulsion to let people know that I also have a black square. I have no problem with you posting a black square necessarily if that's what you want to do, but just make sure that you're honest. Be sincere. Don't do it just so other people could see you doing it. You know what I'm saying? That virtue signal can overwhelm into becoming condescending, and you may not even pick up on that's what you're doing. So I can go ahead and play that video from the beginning. We don't necessarily have to play the latter half, just the first half I think will prove this for you, but go ahead and play this.
You just tell me when to stop.
California. I'm Ami Horowitz, and I'm here in Berkeley, California to find out if voter ID laws suppress the black vote. Do you have an opinion on voter ID laws?
Yeah, they're usually pretty racist and they're bad.
I think voter ID laws are a way to perpetuate racism.
Would you go as far as say those laws are racist?
For sure.
Do you think it suppresses the African American vote?
Definitely.
Tell us how.
Because they're less likely to have state IDs.
Minority voters are less likely to have the kinds of IDs that have been described or required.
These type of people don't live in areas with easy access to DMVs or other places where they can get identification.
You can always get IDs do over the internet. Does that also make it difficult for